This is not a glitch in the Matrix, and it's not a window. It's actually just a guy looking through a ton of straws. Where do you even get this many? Ever wonder why baby hands are so squishy? It's because the fingers and wrists in their bones aren't connected. When you're sleeping, your eyes are moving back and forth even though they're closed. Movements are thought to mirror the scenes you're seeing in your dream, almost like your brain is watching something. Canada has an island in a lake, in an island, in a lake, and then in an island! Bet you've never seen a peacock flying before. Did you even know that peacocks could fly? In case you were wondering, yes, it's confirmed. An inchworm literally is an inch long. You never really think about what crocodiles are doing under the water. Crocodiles are actually incredibly goofy animals. This is a golf ball hitting the wall at 150 miles per hour. As you can see, it's no longer a golf ball. It's basically a pancake, and then it comes off the wall, and look how it's still not a ball. It's basically the forces within it are going back and forth. This was filmed at 70,000 frames per second, and you can see it's so detailed. It's so weird. Here's an astronaut trying to eat bread with honey. First problem, bread. Crumbs in space don't fall, they float. And floating crumbs can get into equipment, vents, and someone's eyes. So astronauts usually avoid bread. And then the honey. It doesn't drip down like on Earth. It just clings and stretches into these weird blobs. If it breaks loose, now you've got sticky floating goo drifting around the station. So instead of casually eating, they have to carefully control every bite like it's a science experiment. Even something as simple as toast and honey becomes, don't lose control of this or it becomes a problem. Space makes everything harder. Even a snack you'd eat in 10 seconds on Earth. The biggest firework in the world. It's called the Yanshako Duma, and it weighs more than 900 pounds. The firework spreads almost half a mile in the sky and lights up the entire horizon. The sparks slowly fall back down in this massive golden curtain. Bakers call a creation like this a tsunami cake. The secret lies in the specific viscosity of the glittery glaze trapped inside the plastic ring. Pulling the sleeve upward releases the surface tension, forcing a river of glossy icing to cascade perfectly down the slopes. You can literally plant your corn on the cob in the soil, give it some water and sunlight, and within a few days, it starts pushing little green roots into the ground. Each kernel already has enough stored energy to start growing. Here's a drop being put into an eye. It takes up to 400 milliseconds for your eye to blink. This slow motion video allows you to see how your eyelid sweeps a fresh layer of tears. This is raw cotton straight from the plant. It's made of really long, soft fibers all tangled together. So when you pull it, it stretches instead of snapping. That's why it looks fake, but it's completely real. It pulls it down. They're the same size. This is called an Ames room. It looks normal, but it's actually warped. One side is way closer to the camera than the other. So when they switch spots, one suddenly looks huge. In a rescue situation, every second counts. This is how firefighters mastered the clove hitch, not used for securing equipment or stabilizing a scene in an instant. It looks like magic, but it's actually a combination of precision mechanics and thousands of hours of muscle memory. I bet you've never seen a Pac-Man frog dig before. Well, this is how they do it. They spin around in circles, and then they go underground, I guess. Australia is much larger than you think. Most maps use the Mercator projection. It distorts the size of landmasses the further they get from the equator. As we move Australia toward the poles, it appears to grow a lot, but its actual surface area remains the same. When placed over Africa, you can see it's nearly the size of the entire Sahara Desert, covering multiple countries at once. Over Europe, it basically stretches across the whole continent. It takes over everything. It nearly matches the size of the United States. Australia is huge. Here's how they remove a wisdom tooth. First, anesthesia, so you don't feel anything. Then extraction. They loosen it and sometimes break it into pieces. Next is cleaning, making sure everything's clear. Then stitching to close up. And after that, it just heals on its own. They're rubbing a sheet all over their kids' heads? That sounds bad. Rubbing the sheets on their heads in order to build up an electric charge. When they lift up the sheet, the charge actually goes into the hair and stands up. Teaching their kids about static electricity. These sanitation workers came up with an incredibly low-tech, genius solution to move massive volumes of standing water in just seconds. By using a heavy hose pose as a flexible barrier, they can completely herd the puddle and channel it into a whirlpool directly above the open drain. This is how you clean a flood. This is a mating ritual between turtles called claw fluttering. What happens is that a male goes up to a female and gets her attention by fluttering his claws in her face. Look at the baby kangaroos! So it's not actually 10 babies. Kangaroos usually only have one. The rest are older joeys just climbing in and out like it's public property. They use it as a safe spot, so they'll literally pile in whenever they feel like it. Watch the water just sit on top of the feathers like it's a rain jacket. That's because the feathers are hydrophobic, which means they repel water instead of soaking it up, flying upside down above the other. Both pilots have to hold almost the exact same speed, same angle, same spacing, while moving at hundreds of miles per hour. This is the Blue Angels doing a precision formation pass. There's no room for casual correction here. Okay, so at the top there, you can see they're not entirely straight. There's actually one on top of the other in the front, but that was like the first thing that the braces fixed. By the way, this is not happening in real time. This is like months, if not years. If it was happening in real time, I have to say, it would be very painful. So this guy's got a lot of mosquitoes trapped and he's putting his hand over it, and watch as the mosquitoes try to jab. They're trying to suck his blood. Did you know it's only females that try to drink your blood? Those are all females. It lines up almost perfectly. In Japan, misleading packaging is actually illegal. What you see on the package has to match what's inside. Just exactly what you paid for. In a lot of places, what's on the box is like kind of a suggestion. Bigger, brighter, sometimes not even close to what you get. Why isn't our packaging like this? This is not a snake. This is a Hemeroplanese caterpillar. When it feels a predator nearby, it doesn't run. Instead, it sucks in air to expand its interior segments, stretching its skin to reveal a completely different identity. In seconds, a harmless larva transforms into a terrifying pit viper. These aren't real eyes, they're just pigment markings. But the mimicry is so perfect, it even includes the look of reflective pupils. To sell the act, it even sways its body back and forth, imitating the strike-ready posture of a venomous snake. You're not gonna believe who eats this. Designing a high-efficiency farming ecosystem means finding the hidden value in things that usually get thrown away. When cleaning out poultry feeding stations, the typical routine is to collect the waste and add it straight to a compost pile or throw it in the trash. But if you plan your layout carefully, you can turn a basic chore into a direct resource for a completely separate part of the farm. This setup redirects the dirty wash water and loose grain right down into a reservoir, sparking an instant feeding frenzy for a massive school of fish. Here's how you make a watermelon. Once the seed's planted, it sends roots down almost immediately. Then a shoot pushes up, looking for light. Within days, it starts growing vines that spread out across the ground. And instead of one fruit, the plant can grow multiple watermelons at once, each one taking weeks to fully grow and fill with water. It scans your head in 3D, then cuts your hair with millimeter precision, which sounds amazing until the robot has one bad software update, and now you're bald. Bet you didn't know you could chop wood like this. Splitting wood manually with an axe takes an insane amount of physical effort and precision, especially when dealing with tough, stubborn logs. Modern hydraulic splitters bypass that struggle entirely, utilizing massive mechanical pressure to slice through dense grain effortlessly. Watch this ground get clean. Concrete is actually full of tiny pores that trap dirt, algae, oil, bacteria, and pollution over time. So a lot of sidewalks are basically absorbing decades of grossness every single day. Watching videos are so satisfying because your brain loves visual contrast and pattern correction. How did nobody tell me that capybaras had legs this long?
Their bodies are just hiding all of it.
Pulling a seatbelt all the way out to blast it with a power washer reveals just how much hidden grime accumulates in a car interior over time. Woven nylon fibers are incredibly durable, but they act like a giant magnet for body oils, spilled drinks, and daily dust that normal wiping can never actually reach. Hitting the fabric with a concentrated hydraulic force forces the embedded dirt completely out of the weave. Takes an easily overworked part of detailing and turns turns it into one of the most satisfying transformations. Here's how braces work. Fixing severe dental crowding isn't just about straightening teeth. When there's physically no room left on the jawline, creating space means making strategic sacrifices to let the entire structure reset. Watching the front line unravel and shift back into perfect alignment shows just how much structural choreography goes into a flawless smile. Computers sort tomatoes faster than humans can even see. This is an optical sorter used in commercial farming to process thousands of pounds of produce a minute. High-speed cameras scan the color of every single tomato as it falls. If it detects a green one, a computer triggers a precise blast to get it out. Here's a bruised nail growing out. Fingernails grow at an average of 3.5 millimeters per month, but it can feel like forever when you're waiting for a mark like this to disappear. This is a subungual hematoma, basically trapped blood under the nail plate. It takes about 6 months for a thumbnail to completely replace itself. This is the body's natural conveyor belt in action. The longest non-stop flight in the world flies from New York to Singapore. That's over 9,500 miles in one shot. And the trip can take nearly 19 hours. Imagine being on a plane for 19 hours. Watch as his hair grows out. Committing to a total hair transformation means surviving that long, chaotic, awkward phase where nothing quite sits right. Texture changes as length takes over. This is a video how to do that really loud whistle. Okay, so first you gotta smile, and then put your mouth down, and then your fingers put it in a A, and then your tongue. I couldn't do the whistle. At first, the kids are just trying to grab the orange out of the jar, but every time they reach in, their arm displaces the water. So the water slips out, and the orange just stays there. They can't get a grip because everything's moving and unstable. It's basically chaos. Then they change one thing. They start spinning the water. The water wraps around the orange as it spins. That traps a thin layer of fast-moving water underneath it. Pressure builds below, while pressure above drops. That difference creates lift. Knowing physics is basically a superpower. When a tooth is in the wrong place, this is an impacted canine, and it's stuck way up there in the gums. Orthodontists use a technique called expose and bond. Attach a tiny bracket and a chain directly to the tooth. Using specialized springs and wire tension, they apply just enough pressure to guide that tooth down into the gap. Week by week, the tooth is pulled into the correct arch. Once it's low enough, it gets its own standard bracket. This dude took a picture every single day to show how his hair grew. Hair grows way slower than people think. On average, it only grows about ½ an inch per month. That's roughly 6 inches an entire year. But when you take a photo every single day, you can actually see it happening. What looks like nothing from one day to the next slowly turns into visible growth over time. Each individual hair on your head goes through the same cycle. First it grows, then it rests, and eventually it falls out and a new hair replaces it. Standard cotton swabs usually just pack the earwax deeper into the speaker grill. This method uses a liquid molding gel, flows into every single microscopic gap in the metal mesh. It acts like a giant magnet for debris, lifting out a perfect, gross imprint of exactly what was blocking your sound. Keeping it free of fingerprints must be an absolute nightmare. Transparent keycaps transform the entire keyboard into a literal canvas. You're playing a game and click your mouse. This is what happens next. Travels as an electrical signal through miles of fiber optic cables. These signals move at nearly the speed of light, crossing oceans through massive undersea cables. Your data is processed by complex neural networks and high-speed servers in milliseconds. Also, you can land that perfect shot without lag. Ever wonder what a thought looks like? You're watching a real time-lapse of human neurons stretching across a petri dish. These tiny branches are called dendrites, literally hunting for other cells to talk to. When they touch, they form a synapse, the foundation of every memory you have and every skill you've ever learned. Right now, your brain is doing this billions of times per second. If you saw a baby 90 light years away, it would actually be 90 years old. The light takes 90 years to reach you. While that light is traveling, the baby keeps growing and aging. You'd be seeing it as a baby. You're never seeing things as they are now. You're always seeing the past. This is going to make a tree. First, you crack open that hard shell, and inside is the actual seed. Once it's planted, it starts pushing out roots almost immediately. What's crazy is it's using all the energy stored inside that seed to grow at the start. Then a shoot breaks through, looking for light. Over time, it turns into a full tree that can produce hundreds of mangoes. People are saying this pattern on the moon looks like Mario twerking. Dirt looks like it's moving on its own. That's actually a mole pushing its way up through the soil. Moles spend most of their lives underground. Their bodies are basically built like tiny digging machines. Their eyes are extremely small. This thing is basically a bulldozer with fur. This tiny grain of rice is about to turn into an entire plant. It starts with almost nothing, just a dry seed sitting in dirt. A root pushes down, searching for stability. Then a shoot fights its way up, bending towards the light. Every frame, it's stretching, dividing, growing faster than you'd ever notice in real time. What looks slow is actually non-stop movement.
It looks like it's being eaten alive, but actually, this is how leopard sharks flirt. They're flirting with each other.
This is a plane wing during turbulence. It looks like it's bending way too much, but that's actually on purpose. Wings are built to flex so they can handle changing air pressure and forces. If they were stiff, they'd be way more likely to crack and fail. So all the bending you're seeing, that's actually the wing absorbing stress and staying intact. Here's an impossible pool shot. This isn't just luck. It's about the transfer of kinetic energy. The downward force creates enough forward momentum to sink the shot.
Bet you didn't know this is how printers work. It's actually just 3 colors they mix together.
I bet you've never seen a rabbit swim before. Look at him. He's paddling his back legs. He's going pretty fast. I've never seen this before. Hanging off the side of a skyscraper just to paint window borders requires a terrifying amount of bravery and a completely zero gravity level of hand stability. This setup completely eliminates the need for hours of masking tape, allowing them to slice crisp, flawless lines onto weathered concrete with a single steady pass. Working at extreme heights means fighting unpredictable wind gusts while managing a heavy pressurized hose, keeping the spray tip exactly the right amount from the surface. You're looking at a bait ball, one of nature's most spectacular defense mechanisms. When small forage fish like sardines feel threatened, they swarm into these massive spheres. The goal is to minimize the chance of any single fish being picked off by a predator. By staying in a tight pack, they create a confusion effect that makes it impossible for a hunter to lock onto a target. Watch how they react as the diver moves through. They don't just scatter in fear, they move in a fluid, mathematical harmony to keep the formation intact. They get graffiti off in a crazy way. First, the paint is treated with chemicals that loosen it from the surface. Then the pressure has to be carefully adjusted. If it's too low, the paint barely moves. But if it's too high, it can permanently damage the brick underneath. And because old brick is extremely porous, the paint doesn't just sit on the surface. It gets pulled deep into thousands of tiny holes. You can actually watch years of dried, weather-hardened paint dissolve into a thick, white slurry. It's basically a giant eraser pulling the color straight out of the brick. This isn't a fake finger. This is called Raynaud's phenomenon. It happens when the small arteries that supply blood to your skin overreact to cold temperatures or emotional stress. During an attack, these vessels go into a vasospasm, narrowing so much that blood flow is almost completely cut off. This causes the finger to turn a ghostly, waxy white. It can feel numb, cold, or even a pins and needles sensation as the oxygen supply drops. While it looks like the finger is frozen, it's actually a hyperactive survival mechanism where the body tries to conserve core heat by sacrificing circulation to the limbs. Once it's warmed up, the blood eventually rushes back. Cow farmers sort sheep really fast. This is called drafting, and it's basically controlled chaos. As each sheep comes through, the farmer is checking the marking, then sending it into the right pen. And there's barely time to think. One hand keeps the sheep moving, the other hand flips the gate. If he hesitates, the line backs up. If he moves too late, the wrong sheep gets sorted. If the gate jams, now you've got a sheep traffic accident. The sheep move almost like water, so he's not really stopping them, he's redirecting them. That's why this looks so satisfying. It seems simple, but it's years of muscle memory. Nachi goats. They're known for this weird, bouncing, almost dancing walk. Instead of walking normally, they look like they're dancing. It's not random either. It's just how this breed naturally moves. People even raise them specifically because of this. So yeah, they're not dancing. They're just walking. Here's how you drink water in space. In microgravity, water behaves less like a liquid and more like a floating gelatinous ball. Without gravity to pull it down, surface tension becomes the dominant force, pulling the liquid into the tightest possible shape, a sphere. funnier. In space, even a simple drink of water becomes a physics experiment. Watch what happens when she tries to catch it. They literally have to grab the water out of the air just to drink it. This is how grapes become raisins. Grapes are about 80% water, so if you just leave them outside, they start to dry out. They dry out and become wrinkly and smaller, and then they become raisins. But that whole process is just, leaving them be, and about 50 days pass, and then they're raisins. The baby owl lost its mom. It's an orphan, so a wildlife rehabber has to feed it by hand. But there's one huge problem. If the owl starts thinking humans are its parents, it may never survive in the wild. That's called imprinting. So the human disappears. They hide their face and hands and deliver the food through a great horned owl puppet. To the owlet, this isn't some person in a costume. This is supposed to feel like mom. That's why the puppet doesn't just drop food in its mouth. It nudges and feeds the chick like another owl would. It looks ridiculous, but the whole point is to keep the bird wild, because the goal isn't to make it comfortable around people. The goal is to make sure it never needs us again. When was the last time you actually cleaned your seatbelt? Seatbelts are literally magnets for sweat, skin oils, and spilled coffee for years on end. Over time, this grime becomes embedded deep within the high tensile fibers, which is why a simple wipe down usually doesn't work. Using a pressure washer provides an instant deep clean, but you have to be careful with the pressure. Too much force can actually damage the integrity of the safety webbing. How your body replaces a nail. That deep purple, that's blood trapped under the nail. And instead of fixing it, your body just starts over. A brand new nail begins growing underneath from the base, and it slowly pushes the damaged one forward. The old nail gets lifted, cracked, and shoved out as the new one comes in. That's why it eventually just falls off. Your body didn't repair a nail, it just made a new one. This is exactly how we go to the moon. You think a spaceship just points at the moon and flies straight there? Nope. It's basically falling sideways around Earth first. The Orion spacecraft has to orbit Earth, build speed, then slingshot out at the exact moment the moon will be there after. And the moon isn't just sitting still, it's moving at 2,000 miles per hour. So you're not aiming at where it is, you're aiming at where it's going to be. That's why the path looks like a weird spiral instead of a straight line. You're constantly being pulled by Earth and slowly grabbed by the moon's gravity. Miss that timing by even a little, and you fly right past it into space. Is this the scariest roller coaster? This is Oblivion in Italy. At first, it's normal. You're going up, everything's fine, nobody's panicking yet. Then you get to the top, and it just stops. And now you're just sitting there staring straight down into this pitch black tunnel. And your brain is like, yeah, no, that's a hole. I don't care what you call it. It holds you there for a few seconds, which is honestly the worst part, because now you have time to think. Big mistake. And then, no warning, it just drops you straight down, almost perfectly vertical. You hit around 62 miles per hour instantly, and you're just straight down before your brain even catches up. It's 87 degrees, which is basically vertical. Working on the open ocean is already named one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth, but transferring cargo between two moving ships takes it to a whole new level. Crew members on these commercial fishing boats use a single unsecured wooden plank to slide heavy crates of fresh catch across the churning water. Cutting open an unhatched egg with surgical scissors looks terrifying, but it might be the only way to save a baby snake's life. Reptile breeders call a manual assist like this piping. It's designed to be insanely bright without creating any harsh shadows. This is a surgical light used in operating rooms. Multiple light sources overlap so surgeons can see clearly from every angle. Here's what your mouth looked like growing up. At around 6 months, your first baby teeth start breaking through. Then around 6, it gets weird. Your adult teeth start pushing in while your baby teeth start falling out. By your early teens, most of your adult teeth are in. Your mouth literally rebuilds itself. Your hair is dying on purpose. This animation shows the telogen phase, where your hair is basically a dead strand waiting to fall out. If this cycle gets disrupted, that's when thinning happens. This is why when you find hair in a brush, it's not a mistake. Your hair is basically programmed to fall out. Completely destroy a $50,000 piece of equipment. Leaving a sharp stone stuck like a wedge under a 300-ton payload is a guaranteed recipe for a catastrophic explosive blowout. Picking up a rock in a heavy mining truck can tree frogs suck. They have good suction. Their toes are covered in these tiny pads with microscopic channels that spread out a really thin layer of moisture. That gives them enough friction and surface tension to grip leaves, bark, and the pads can actually change shape depending on what they're climbing. At what age did you stop hearing the sound? We're in the 70s right now, so everybody can probably hear this. Now we're in the 60s. Now we're in the 50s. I can still hear it. I'm sure you can too. Now we're in the 40s. I'm sorry if it's annoying. Now we're in the 30s. It's getting quieter. Now we're in the 20s, and I can't hear it anymore. Can you? Now we're in the 10s. Here's something almost no human has ever seen. He's inside the spacecraft filming through a tiny window with just his phone. No edits, no cropping, just a clean shot straight out the window. What it shows is insane. You're watching the Earth slowly disappear behind the moon. It looks like a sunset, but it's the Earth setting. It's an Earth set. Something you literally can't see from the surface of Earth. From this angle, Earth looks so small. Just a blue dot slipping out of view. And this only happens for a few seconds. One perfect alignment between the spacecraft, Earth, and the moon, and then it's gone. All because the spacecraft was flying around the moon, where this perspective is even possible. And even then, the window is tiny, which is why a phone was actually the perfect way to capture it. A simple phone video, capturing one of the rarest views of all time. So apparently this is a way you can learn Morse code. I've never actually learned Morse code, but it doesn't seem that complicated until I see this and I realize it's a lot of dots. Basically the only times that okay, so I do know SOS is like da 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 da, but I guess I is just like 2 dots and a J, but I don't understand the curve. So I get that this is trying to explain to me how Morse code works, but it's just not. Oh wait, so the straight lines must be like the long notes. I guess the curves are probably also the long notes. So, okay, I'm getting it now. So it'd be like da, da, da for R, because that's where it's curving. And then this is going to be 2 dots, 2 dots, and okay, I'm getting it. W, X, what is X going to be? That was really complicated for an X. Parallel parking is so stressful. Modern EV technology is completely changing the game by allowing all 4 wheels to steer independently. The vehicle can literally crab walk sideways into a tight spot. There's a strange magic to shadow puppetry because it relies entirely on what your brain leaves out, forcing you to fill in the blanks of a creature made purely of nothing. Human beings have been obsessed with manipulating darkness ever since we first discovered fire, trying to convince our eyes that empty spaces hold actual life. Your eyes know it's just a hand blocking a beam of light on a cheap piece of fabric, but your instincts immediately translate the silhouette into a living, breathing personality. It's the ultimate form of low-tech sorcery, stripping away high-definition pixels and complex graphics to communicate a story through the absolute bare minimum amount of visual information. Watching a modern crowd gather around a simple flashlight show proves that we haven't actually changed all that much since we were telling stories on cave walls. We are still entirely captive to the illusion of contrast, instantly hooked by the simple play between a bright light and a dark corner. Here's what it looks like to have ghosts in your house. This is an augmented reality game called Hauntify. It makes a map of your actual house, and it drops ghosts into it. So you're walking through your own house, seeing things that aren't really there. Around corners, behind doors. Why would anyone do this? Marinas and harbors are testing out automated ocean skimmers that sit directly at the water's surface to trap debris before it can ever float out to sea. Once dental plaque hardens into tartar, standard brushing won't touch it. It takes microscopic vibrations to break it free. This ultrasonic scalar vibrates at tens of thousands of times per second, shattering the bond between the calculus and the enamel. The water mist cools the tip while flushing out debris, instantly leaving behind a completely clean, smooth-toothed surface. We're gonna start at 40 miles per hour. That's like a pitching machine you'd see, but as we get faster, you're not gonna believe 100 miles per hour. Look, even at 70, you can like basically not even see the ball. So at 90 and 100, look at this. You can't see it! Gaining muscle. At the start, there's barely any muscle or fat on the frame. That's why everything looks so sharp. You're basically seeing bone structure with minimal tissue on top. As weight increases, the first big change is just filling out. Muscle starts covering the ribs, the chest thickens, and the shoulders widen because that's where the body tends to store new mass first. Then you hit the athletic range. This is where muscle definition peaks. Enough size to look strong, but still lean enough to see clear separation in the abs and chest. After that, adding more size doesn't just mean more definition. definition. It's more volume. Muscles get thicker, especially in the legs and back, and the frame starts to look dense instead of just defined. At the highest end, it turns into a bulk-focused physique. Same structure underneath, just completely different amounts of muscle built on top of it. Modern braces are basically tiny engineering systems built right onto your teeth. First, each tooth has to be carefully cleaned and prepared so the brackets can stay firmly attached. Clear ceramic brackets make the whole setup much less noticeable while still doing the same job as metal braces. Each bracket acts like a small guide, directing exactly where pressure needs to be applied. Once the wire is secured, it creates a steady, gentle force that slowly moves the teeth into place. Over time, even the bone and tissue around them adjust. All of that movement is happening constantly, even though you can barely see it. Computers have changed a lot. Back in the 80s, this was a home setup. Just beige plastic everywhere and a computer the size of a microwave. Then the 90s hit, and somehow everything got faster. But your desk got even worse. Speakers, printers, cables, just chaos. By the 2000s, those giant CRT monitors finally started dying off, and everything began to slim down. Then minimalism took over. People hiding cables like it's a crime to see them. And now, the most powerful computers we've ever had just fit in a backpack. But the weird part is what's next, because we're getting closer to a point where the computer isn't even a physical thing anymore. This is the evolution of AI measured in spaghetti. So there's this ongoing meme that you kind of measure how good AI looks by Will Smith eating spaghetti. By 2025, it really does look like Will Smith. But somehow, even though like that first Will Smith looked like Will Smith, I don't know how, but it looks more like Will Smith. So this is the Grok engine in 2025 is taking a big bite of spaghetti. Higgsfield and Kling in December. Look at his wrinkles. You can see the steam coming off. I mean, it looks like Will Smith. Like, how would you tell? Like, how would you not? How?